I had a security company, and we were doing close protection training. And a couple of the directors from a company called Securitas, or a subsidiary of Securitas in Iceland, attended the course. And that went really well, and we did another course, and that went really well, and they decided they wanted to buy my little training company from me. So I thought, brilliant. And at the same time, I knew a guy called Mick Francis, and he runs a company called Lock 19 on the doors in Manchester. And he'd just written his first book. So I'd sold my company, I had a little bit of money, I had some time. I happened to meet Mickey Francis's publisher. I talked to his publisher, and his publisher said, "Hey, you've got a really good story. Why don't you write a book?" I've never thought about writing a book in my life. I mean, I'm not an academic, you know. So I said, yeah, okay. I've got a year. I'm going to take a year off from doing stuff. I'm just going to chill and relax and write. And that's how it basically started. And from then onwards, I never went back into security. And I did go back to door work, but not very often. I just ended up spending most of my time writing for the first 4 or 5 books, all about doors, about my life on the doors, as well as close protection as well. So that's how it started, just by chance. Just 2 things happened to fall into place at the right time. So my first book was called Doing the Doors, and that's kind of became a cult book for nightclub doormans all over. Actually, it sold quite a few, tens of thousands of copies, and that's kind of autobiographical as well, because I had quite a difficult background and upbringing, and an unhappy childhood, and I was a bit of a rebel, and I did lots of stupid things. So I kind of wanted to write that down, chronicle it, put it in so that people can read it and identify with it, as well as my journey into doing the doors, and then thereafter on the doors. And I never really wanted to be a doorman for very long. It was just a kind of a summer job, really. I was passing, I didn't have a job, I was unemployed, and I looked nightclub door, a job centre window, and that said wanted door supervisors, and I applied for it. I thought, brilliant, 6 nights a week working in nightclubs with all the kind of the glamour back in the kind of early 80s, you know, the dance era, when there was no drugs and no gangsters, and everyone just wanted a good time, and I was in my element. I loved it, of course. You know. But yeah, I just kind of fell into it. It was the period of time where they wanted to get rid of kind of the old style doorman, really. It was at a nightclub called Ritzy's in Norwich, and the new manager, it was just opened, a new manager wanted to kind of a new vision for his club and have nice, polite doormans. It didn't last very long, unfortunately, because you know, people go to clubs for the same reason. They've always gone to clubs, and they fight like they've always, you know, fought. The book that is the most popular book is this Doing the Doors, and that's still on the bookshelves now. And that's kind of, as I said, it became a kind of a cult book for doormen, sort of sold all over. I had an email about 6 months ago of someone sitting on the beach in Greece, and he saw my book on the shelves of a cafe, which was interesting. So he had a good read in the summer. So it's kind of all over the place. So that was my first one, and then followed that I did Bouncers and Bodyguards, which is a continuation, and Confessions of a Doorman, and the Mammoth Book of Half Bastards. And then I teamed up with Charlie Bronson, the prisoner, the famous prisoner, to do a book about respect and reputation. I didn't interview Charlie Bronson because he's a Category A prisoner, and he still is after so many years. So everything was done. My book with him was done via correspondence. So he would write his chapter, I would then kind of format it and type it out, send it back to him, he would approve it, depending upon what mood he was in, or he wouldn't, and then that kind of went backwards and forwards. No, I wasn't allowed to interview Charlie, unfortunately. I would have liked to have done, but he's a very interesting, kind of different dynamic character. After spending however many years, 40 odd years in prison, he's going to be a little bit unusual, should we say. With respect and reputation, we wanted to show people it's not cool to go to prison, firstly, and it is cool to show respect to people, and it is cool to do the best that you can be in whatever situations and circumstances you're doing. And that's the kind of book that we wanted to write, rather than just a blatant sort of guns blazing kind of doorman fighting. We want to kind of give a bit of a message out to people, what is cool and what isn't cool, and what you should do and shouldn't do. And again, that's kind of a bestseller in its genre. It sold really well. A lot of people were interested in that. Definitely interested in that sort of a direction. He really kind of, I don't know whether he regrets what he's done. I mean, he was put in prison in the early 70s for armed robbery. It could have been out a few years later, but because he's a violent man and he doesn't sort of regret anything and he doesn't say he shouldn't have done it, he's always been sort of, I don't know, very narrow-minded, I suppose. I think as he gets older, I mean, we're not young men anymore. As we get older, we realise that some of the things that we've done in the past we shouldn't have done, and we could have changed our world if we wanted to. And it's not cool to do these things, even though at the time we think, yeah, I'm a big hard man, I can, you know, have fights and scraps and do things, but that's actually not cool. It's much better to be a good person in life, and he wanted to kind of to show that angle, to show people don't follow his footpath, don't go to prison for 40 odd years, however long he's been, because there's a much better world out there, and that's what he wanted to show people. True crime is a publisher's genre, so they have various categories that when you publish a book you have to register under that category, only because it's identified easily, of course. But mine is true crime, so it covers anything that's kind of gritty, real world, underground, gangsters, criminals, nightlife, and actually it's fascinating. I don't condone what anybody does, and I've interviewed all sorts of people all over the world, all sorts of very hard, very tough people. I don't condone their behaviour, I don't condone their lifestyle, but I am fascinated as to why people do what they do. All had a journey in life, but what journey have they had in order for them to be who they are and to have done the things that they've done? That I find fascinating. I don't, you know, as I say, I don't condone it, I don't live their lifestyle, I don't agree a lot with what they do, and I think as well, I found a lot of people that I've interviewed, all sorts, from gangsters to kind of bare knuckle boxers in Russia and all sorts of crazy people. Most of them have a code of ethics. They don't do anything to the innocent or the you know, the kind of the timid or the weak. They tend to keep with themselves within their own community. They're not like the scumbags on the streets that will steal from an old lady or rob, or, you know, they're not like that. These are quite kind of respectful people, even though you think, God, that, you know, they've done this crime or they've done that crime. Most of them are pretty decent, you know, taking away the criminal element, decent people with decent morals, and they don't, most of them, they don't kind of affect everyday people. And I found that fascinating, really, and that's the kind of reason why I did so many books in that genre. I did a book as well recently about women, Britain's toughest women, and that I found fascinating too, because all these women have had such diverse and quite traumatic and quite tragic lives, and yet so many of them have gone on to do so many interesting things, become world champion boxers or kickboxers or cage fight, only because of the lifestyle that they've had have led them to do something good in their lives. And so many people don't. So many people have a bad life and make that an excuse for living a bad life. So I find that genre, yeah, true crime, quite fascinating. I'm working on one on relationships from women writers around the world in all sorts of communities, from Sri Lanka to India to Canada and Africa, Nigeria, all over, writing about the challenges they have finding a partner and relationships within their community, within their cultural background, and the difficulties they have, from, you know, the sort of idealism of falling in love that we have in the West to an arranged marriage in India or Sri Lanka. So that's quite interesting. But before I did that, I did 25 professional real urban combat specialists, so I focused on them. So I did a book focusing on different urban combat styles that there are around the world. So my publishing and my writing and my kind of editing is quite diverse.